Hello YouTube coin collectors and stackers. Today we're going to be looking at the results of my latest 2-box hunt, looking for the ever elusive 2024 Jefferson Nickels in either the Denver or Philly format. Today, as of this morning, looking at the Mint's numbers, the 2024 Denver sits at 32,880,000, and the Philly number is bumped up based on some production in November to 79,920,000. So at least as far as the Denver goes, this is the lowest Denver nickel since I believe 1952, and the Philly nickel is now starting to approach 100 million, but still very low as far as nickels go. As we go through some of the finds here, I'm going to be referring to their mintage numbers as well and comparing them to what we see today with the 2024 nickel. I do have some exciting finds from these boxes, and I'll be revealing how many 2024 nickels I found as I look through another 4,000 nickels. So let's go ahead and start with what is a pretty exciting find. And I found it early on, and it's this one right here. This is a 1939 San Francisco, reverse of 1938. So I was very excited to find this one. It's in pretty good shape, actually. See if you guys can see it there. It's in pretty good shape. Obviously, it's circulated, but as far as a nickel this age goes, you can see the columns on the Monticello and all of this. It's actually in pretty decent shape, and it's a low mintage. This one right here, 6.6 million. So we compare that to 32.8 million for the Denver 2024. This one's at 6.6 million, and it's worth around $1 in this condition. So significantly fewer, like 20% of the mintage, 80 years later or so, and it's worth $1. Next, we move on to this 1940 Philly, mintage 176 million. We have some 41s here. We have 3 from Philly and 2 from Denver. The Philly one's pretty high mintage, 203 million, and 53 million for the Denver. So not a whole lot more than we're seeing. I guess 20 million more than the 2024, but you're finding these, a significant amount of time has passed since they made these, like 80 years. Moving on, we have a 1942 War Nickel. This is a San Francisco, and we have another San Francisco from 43. And I'll just grab both of these real quick with my gloves on here if I can get it. Well, these gloves definitely, I try to keep my coins clean by wearing gloves, but they can be a bit cumbersome at times. This is the 43. The 42 is your normal kind of scuzzy, dirty, worn down War Nickel that you generally see when you fish them out. But this one here, this 43, is actually, it's dark, it's hard to see in the light here. There we go. It's actually in pretty decent shape as far as these go. These are usually a lot more worn than this. It's got some good detail on it here as well. It's got some interesting toning on it. So I was excited to find those. It's always fun to find War Nickels. I know a lot of people just do this to look for the War Nickels. We go to a 48 Denver, and that one's 44.7 million, so not too many more than the Denver of this year. And that one's probably worth, these guys, I forgot to mention, these guys are probably worth about $2 each. And the 42S, which was the more worn of the two, actually has 32.9 million. So this guy right here is a lower mintage, actually, than the 2024 Denver. And there it was. Found one of those. Going on to the 48, 44.7 million, so not too much. We go to this 51D right here. This one is actually very interesting. This one's 20.5 million for this, so significantly lower than the Denver of this year, this 51 Denver here. Moving on, we go to the 52S, which also has a low mintage of around 20 million, and this one's in pretty nice shape as well. The 53D at 60 million. We go to a 54D, now we're up over 100 million, the 55, around 75 million. We have two of these 56 Denvers at 67 million mintage each. Over 100 million for these 4 57 Denvers. Now we're way up over 100 million, 168 for this 58 Denver, and these 4 59 Denvers. So we move down here, we get to these, and these are obviously very common. So I have a 62 and a 64, and these are both Phillies. These don't have any mint marks on them. And in this case, we have 280 million for this one. And if you guys have done any nickel roll hunting, you'll see that 1964 nickels, you find a ton of them in there. That's because they made 1.8 billion. But what's interesting about this one is, and I'll just pick it up here real quick, is normally when you find them, they're in this kind of worn condition, right? It's pretty typical, very worn condition of a typical, oh, this is a Denver. 64 Denver, pretty worn condition on this guy. 1.8 billion of these made. Look at this. This is why I pulled this one out. This is a really sharp 64. And you generally don't see them this sharp. See if I can get it in there. You got some steps on there still. Not full steps by any stretch. This is a Philly. But my goodness, I mean, I was very excited to find a nickel in that condition. It was kind of the same with this one here, the 62. Also in very nice condition, just to find in a circulated roll. And I always keep the nicer ones I find. This is a 62 Denver. Moving on from these guys, we have the 67, which was also very nice. I have a 1970 S. Some people like to collect these S mint mark nickels from like the late 60s and early 70s. This is always a fun one. If you guys have ever wondered what these are, if you do enough hunting, you'll find these. You'll find these in $50 rolls sometimes. You find them in quarter rolls from time to time. When you find these coins that are painted like this, they were typically used by an establishment, say like a bar or something like this, or an arcade. If it's quarters and they're painted red or something, they're typically used in an arcade. But this is a jukebox nickel. So in order to get people popping nickels in the jukebox, the proprietor would pop a couple nickels in to kind of get the music going. And that's one of those. So those are always interesting to find. They're not valuable in any way, but it's just a cool piece of history. The next one here is a sintered nickel. And if you guys ever find these nickels, what causes a sintered nickel is when they have it in the annealing furnace, if let's say they were annealing penny planchets or cent planchets before this, and they don't properly clean the oven out, there's a bunch of copper molecules and things from the pennies, from the cent planchets floating around in the oven, and they get on the nickels. So if the next thing they put in the oven is nickels, then the nickels become sintered like this. The most famous of which is the 1959 Black Beauty, which was simply a sintered nickel that some clever coin dealers gave a funny name to, and they marketed it as a Black Beauty, but it's nothing more than a sintered nickel. But I found one of those. These next three right here are all off-center strikes, and I typically don't find a lot of these. Some of these are actually pretty decent. Let's see if we can get in here and look at this one. This is a 2000, and you can see, yeah, you can see it in the light there. See how wide the rim is there, and there's no rim on this side at all. So it was funny. I found this is probably the best example of this off-center strike. Here's a 77, kind of in the same. Not as prominent or pronounced, but certainly off-center strike. And then this one here is a 87 Denver. Again, not as prominent, but certainly an off-center strike on that one. But the 2000 is obviously the best one of those. I was really excited to find this next one. Now, it may not sound like an exciting nickel to find, but I'll put a link in the description below. I did a video recently on 1982 and 1983 and the lack of mint sets that year. There were privately issued mint sets, but the only way you could get something from the mint would be to visit the mint and go to the gift shop. And those sets carry a premium now. You can pay a couple $100s to get both the Philly and Denver souvenir sets from 1982 and 3. And it's very unusual to find an 82 or 83 nickel from Philly or Denver in this kind of condition. And this one's got really interesting toning on it. It's in a very high state. I would say that this is probably an MS 63. It could be a 64. It has full steps. Let me see if I can get the steps in here. So most exciting, see, you guys probably can't see that, but this is a full steps nickel 82. It's probably my best find in the box because this could be, if it grades, this could be an $80 to $100 nickel right here. Because, again, there were no mint sets that year, so it's not really easy to find these in high grade. This other one's just more of a curiosity. But, I always love when I find these. It's just a 2008 nickel that got exposed to some chemicals somewhere. Maybe it sat in a puddle of oil or something, but these are always fun to find. The reverse doesn't have any toning on it. I will report that this is my best 2009 box. And the first I'm going to reveal to you guys is I got 8 Denvers, but my very first Philly 2009 from a roll hunt. Again, I'm on the West Coast, so we don't have a lot of these fillies that make it out here. So my very first filly. And what's interesting about the filly is you're talking about another low mintage. So the Denver 2009, 46.8 million. The filly, 39.8 million. So these are knocking on kind of where the Denver nickel is in 2024. The next one, which I thought was just super funny, is this, wannabe war nickel. Somebody counterstamped this one with a T. No idea what that T means, but there it is. It's sort of this wannabe war nickel with a T on it. And they did something on this side of it, not sure what. But someone took this 1958, is what this is, and it's got this T stamped on it. So it's hard to tell how long this has been floating around with this T on it. Was it more contemporary? Did it happen, back in the 50s when this came out? Somebody did this, or 60s? Or was it done more recently? Another thing we don't find so much. I grew up in New England, so we got Canadian money all the time. But living in Southern California, we don't see it too much. I see more Mexican coins, actually, when I roll hunt than Canadian ones. But you got 3 of these beaver nickels as well. Then we just have some nice kind of higher grade nickels from the 70s that I'm going to say, I always keep them when they're in these higher grades because, nickels get a lot of wear and tear. And when you find a nice nickel, this one's got full steps too, you just tend to keep it. So now I'm going to reveal my most exciting find, probably in all my nickel roll hunting to date. And it's this one right here. This was crazy to pull this out. This is a 1939. So you saw I found a 1939S. This is a 1939 Denver, and you never find these roll hunting. So this was quite a surprise to me when I pulled it out. I mean, the oldest thing I've ever pulled out of a nickel roll hunt was an 1883 no-sense nickel. That was like in extra fine condition, so someone obviously, that got mixed up when somebody went to the bank, but I find more, honestly, Buffalo nickels and Liberty V nickels than I find a lot of other things. But this one here, so the 1939 Denver is considered one of the key dates. The only one with a lower mintage is the 50 Denver, which I've never found in a roll hunt. This is 3.5 million. So essentially 1/10 of the 2024 Denver mintage. And there happened to be one in one of these boxes. It was in the first box, along with the other 39 San Francisco. So they must have gotten mixed up there. Someone accidentally took them to the bank. I don't know. They weren't in the same roll, but they were in the same box. So this one was awesome. And so 3.5 million. Never found one before in a nickel roll hunt. How much is it worth in this condition? $5 or $6, probably, right? In that range for something in this condition. So, I only share these things because you think about all the craziness with the 2024 Denvers, and you look at something like this that's over 80 years old, and it's like $5 or $6. Granted, if I had this in like a, MS68, it would be very valuable, but which is why people are pulling the 2024s like they are. But still, very exciting find. We'll put it next to its brethren up here. So how many 2024 Denver nickels or Philly nickels did I find searching through 4,000, having found, a 39D, a whole pile of 2009s, including a Philly? How many 2024 Jefferson nickels did I find in all of this? I found exactly 0 Jefferson 2024 nickels in these 2 boxes. So I commend the folks that are having better luck than I am. I watch some of the folks that are doing these hunts, and they'll find, a roll of them, scattered around or so forth. But this is now 2 boxes. So I'm at 8,000 nickels, 2 boxes. Plus I get rolls from time to time. I'll just get 10 or 20 rolls here and there. And so far in all of 2024 and all of the nickel boxes I've hunted and everything else, we're into tens of thousands of nickels. I found precisely 1 2024 Denver. So they're obviously not making these nickels are not making their way out to the West Coast in quantity. Maybe if you're in Colorado or Wyoming or somewhere that's sort of near the Denver Mint, you're having better luck. But out here, it's been crickets with these. So 0 in these 2 boxes. I will keep looking. I go out and get boxes every couple of weeks. But thank you guys for hanging with me. A little bit of history through some of these things. My best find in this box is obviously the 39D, which is the first one I've ever found, and this other one, which is this 1982 Denver, MS with full steps. That's probably, from a value standpoint, that's the most valuable one that I found in this box, because most of these 2009s are kind of circulated beaters. Well, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, happy collecting.